authority after that, and from that appellate authority you can go to the TRAI. And consumer forums as earlier had jurisdiction, but now because of this mechanism being in place and most of the operators providing this mechanism, this is the remedy which you have if you have a privilege against some action of the operator. They have to provide the mechanism.
As my friend has told, it is producers' market till now.
No, it is not. In fact, the TRAI's function is to balance out the market and to balance out the interest of the consumer, promote competition, and to see the business interest of the producers also. It is not that it is not financially viable for them, then they will cease to. So ultimately, it is the consumer's loss if the producers don't benefit from it. For example, Tata Heavy Services was a loss-making company till they tied up with Docomo. When they started the services in 97 until 2007, they were a loss-making company. So every company cannot sustain if their business interests are not taken care of. Probably a big name like Tata's good, but a lot of people who are the small-time operators who are trying to get into telecommunication may not be able to do it. So there has to be a balance. That is what TRA is trying to do. But they, as I had earlier said, that they were not functioning as a regulator. They were just waiting, let it all the market forces, and they had faced a lot of music because of that. Now, since they're getting more proactive, I think we should be a bit supportive of that. That's what.
Thank you, Mr. Jolly. Any further questions on this subject? Then I think we should proceed on. Mr. Mohit Jolly will now address us on the role of WTO as a facilitator of growth of telecom services across the globe.
Taking a cue from her and from my friend who had given that the discussion wasn't international enough, I would like to update you a bit. I guess most of the people would know about WTO and its actions in the service area. You are free to ask me questions, even if I'm saying something, you can interrupt me, ask the questions, take me away from the topic, but I'll try to retain my topic. So starting with the WTO, I'll give you the basic facts first, that in the last 10 years, since WTO has been there, WTO has been there more than that, but in the last 10 years, the internet usage has increased by 1500%. The mobile users have increased by 20 times in the world, and it is a market of $1.5 trillion US, of which mobile services account for about 40%, and that is double the amount of a basic telephone operator. So for regulating this sector, so for providing for an international mechanism, the WTO made a substantial contribution to facilitate development in the field of telecommunication, and which to a certain extent addresses the legal tussle which is there between two nations or two different service providers in two different nations. They can always go to the WTO for a dispute resolution. However, starting with the background, commitments in the telecommunication services were first made during the Uruguay round of negotiations during 1986 to 94, after which the GATS agreement was entered into. The WTO members negotiated on the basic telecommunication services, and by the end of it, this sector-specific negotiations, 69 countries committed to open their telecom markets with immediate effect or subject to some implementation dates. Like for India, in case we started opening our market post-99. This was an impressive result because before this negotiations, only 8 countries in the world had agreed to open their markets for foreign players to come in. India also, post-1994, entered into an agreed and made certain commitments about the telecom market. Like, I'll update you about a few of them. One is about that there will be no limitation on cross-border supply of telecom services, and there will be no restriction on services provided abroad. So an Indian company can go abroad and provide services. A commercial presence of foreign entities was allowed, with the only limitation was that they had come through incorporation. They had to formulate a company with maximum 51% of equity stake. And then there was a limited restriction on the natural persons from coming in and working on the telecommunication side. Subsequently, about 108 of WTO members have made commitments to facilitate trade in telecommunication services. This includes establishment of new telecom companies, foreign direct investment in existing companies, and cross-border transmission of telecom services. Out of this total, 99 members have committed to extend competition basic telecommunications, that is fixed and mobile telephony, real-time data transmission and sale of leased circuit capacity. Out of those, in addition to those, 82 WTO members have committed to a regulatory principle spelled out in the reference paper. So they have agreed to an establishment of a regulatory regime which is in such a nature that it is like similar regulatory regime in all the countries, so that the trade is facilitated, international trade is in the services is facilitated. As per what the current negotiations are going on, in the Doha round, which was held in 2000, additional market opening was there were reforms introduced with regard to additional opening of additional markets in the telecommunication side. And as on July 2008, 39 governments had made offers to improve their existing commitments or to commit for the first time. So there were further new players which had come in after this, after the negotiations in 2008. So a new sector-specific negotiating mechanism was mandated by the ministers meeting at the Hong Kong Ministerial Conference, where they had agreed that they would the note which was circulated by the chairman, it was agreed, included that their intention is to achieve broad coverage in the technology neutral manner and significant commitments in all modes of supply. Further, working with least developed countries and developing countries to find ways to encourage new and improved offers to provide technical assistance. This is one of the obligations under the GATS agreement, wherein that the developed nations will assist the developing nations in encouraging them to come forward and provide telecommunication services. Then reducing next thing which they agreed upon was reducing or eliminating exclusive rights. I'll draw your attention now to the GATS agreement, which provides the framework how the WTO provides for rules and regulation. If you see the GATS agreement, there are 5 basic words which emphasize what it provides for. One is recognizing, second is wishing, third is desiring, fourth is taking, and fifth is agreeing. So this agreement seeks to recognize the growing importance of trade and services and the rights of members to regulate and to introduce regulations on the supply of services within their territories in order to meet national policy objectives. What they wish to do is to establish a multilateral framework of principles and rules for trade and services with a view to expansion of trade under conditions of transparency and progressive liberalization. So, a multilateral framework at different levels at different countries wherein a common framework can be adopted, something like a model code, wherein a regulatory mechanism can be put in place so that the facilitation of international trade services is there. What they desire is the early achievement of progressive higher levels of establishment So the desire is to do it at a fast pace as soon as possible, taking into account the serious difficulty in the developing countries. So it is one of the intentions is to help the developing countries to come up to that level as of a developed nation in the services, and on basis of which the agreement was entered, having various clauses, general and specific in nature. There is a specific annex on telecommunications which provides for, relates to the measures which affect access to and use of public communication services and networks. In particular, it requires that such access be accorded to another party on reasonable and non-discriminatory terms to permit supply of service. Conditions attached to the use of public networks should be more than necessary to safeguard public service responsibility of their operators and to protect technical integrity. Now, under this WTO agreement, the GATS agreement, the General Agreement on Trade and Services, there is a mechanism provided for disputes that if there are the obligations entered into by the parties to the agreement, if they do not comply with that, then as per Article 23 of the GATS agreement, the member can go before the dispute settlement board for an settlement of these disputes. There is an example of such a settlement, such a dispute settlement in case of between United States and Mexico, where the laws of Mexico were such that they were contrary to they were anti-competitive and discriminatory to the regulatory measures as opposed to what was agreed by Mexico in the agreement. That was in its report, in the dispute settlement board held that the Mexico had violated its commitments as it had not taken any steps to ensure access or to use to supply said service in a manner consistent with the provisions of the. So that is how the WTO has provided for a mechanism for a place where international issues can be discussed, international regulations can be framed, a model can be provided, and further disputes can be addressed. Hopefully, they will be able to achieve what they sought.
Sorry, my main interest is terrorism. But there is something about which I wanted to be educated, so I thought that if somebody is reading a paper or making comments, what is the attitude of the WTO to governmental subsidies in various sectors of production? And what are the consequences which you sort of incur as a result of subsidizing some sectors, making your product cheaper, and then how do you market them in the international market? So that's what I'm most interested in. So if anybody has anything to say, I would love to hear, because I want to be aware.
Sir, speaking generally on the agreement of services, and all the WTO agreements contain this national treatment clause, wherein if you're providing a certain benefit to your the national industry, then you have to provide that to the international market as well.